Let's get chilly.
All right. Hello and welcome back to Let's Chill, the official, unofficial Minnesota Strike, Minnesota Wind Chill podcast. I'm Jay.
And I'm Kane.
And tonight we are without Jeff,
That's it.
unfortunately. There's just the two of us.
Oh yeah. That means we get to talk now.
Heck yeah.
Our podcast, Jeff. He'll be back. He is just busy tonight. So Jay, what are we getting into?
I think we should jump right into our recap of the strike game because holy crap, that was a game.
Yeah, they walked him quite simply.
Yeah.
Put a leash on him, took him to the park.
Jeez. I mean, it was
Walked
brutal,
them.
but you're gonna be that mean about it.
No, I know. Well, okay, go read my article about the jokes aside. We'll actually get into the game. I think every single game between any team from Minnesota and Wisconsin is a really good, like there might be some elbows here and there on both sides though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's a nice intensity to the games. And so I think a little bit of smack talk is allowed on both sides because it's in good Midwestern faith.
Yeah, it's a nice little border battle.
Right. And so I think we can celebrate this victory. I think this is definitely a victory that we should take as like all right, we're in this, you know what I mean? So yeah, you know what? Let's talk a little game. We went undefeated last year until the playoffs. We can
Yeah, that's fair. Well, getting right into the game, watching the strike play this week was phenomenal. So I think I didn't watch the game live. I watched the recap, not the recap, the VOD of it after the fact. So I had the luxury of going back and rewatching a lot of awesome plays, including some really good bookends.
Yeah,
let's
I know.
start with
I was
the
at the
final
game.
score. Let's start with his final score.
Yeah.
Because what was the final score?
I
It was brutal, is what it was. 21-9.
Okay, I was gonna say we definitely held them to single digits, which was awesome. So should we start with the defense then? Should we start with that? They held them to 9.
Yeah, they held them
Let's
to
talk
9.
about that defense. So I think for me, I literally started like writing a list to you guys. I remember that of just like players because I was like, okay, let's find a couple players to highlight, and I just literally had to start writing them down. On defense, for sure, Tori Gray, Julia Hill, and then Erica Bacon, sorry. Those 3 I like wrote down. I think I don't even have the numbers because I don't do numbers. That's your job, not mine. There's the number of blocks and defensive pressure those 3 allowed to allowed for the team to have. How many break points? Do you have that number pulled up?
I don't have that number pulled up, but 12, I would assume, because they won
Right.
by 12.
I figured. But I don't know how the math works out on that. Either way, really, really good defensive pressure. I think I'm a defense guy. I know you're an offense wins games kind of guy, but what do you got to say about that defensive showing?
So bringing it back to what Alicia Carr said in that week 1 interview we had with her, there were those two styles of play, and I think even that more conservative D line, we were seeing a more like a really fast paced D line and a more conservative D line this week as well. But even that conservative D line was just doing everything perfectly. I mean, not to say they weren't last week, but like they weren't going for major plays. They were just applying a lot of pressure and forcing turns. Forcing turns, forcing high stall count situations, and then forcing the Monarchs to take those bad looks, which just allowed them to get those like the disc on defense and get those break points and really run up the score. Um, I'm not
Absolutely.
gonna lie,
Yes.
after the first half, that 11-3 at halftime, that had to be, I mean, that was brutal.
Mhm.
Like I was watching the game. If yeah, watching the game 11-3, it felt like the strike always had the disc for that whole first
Right.
half. It felt like they were never not holding the disc.
Right. Well, let's go into that. Possession is such an important thing, especially once you get a lead. Um, to maintain that is really important. I think like just field control, especially on defense. I think that's something the Strike are really good at is setting up defensive plays that don't let the offense set up, really. Like we're really good at disrupting and setting up our flow on the field, whether we're on offense or defense. And I think a lot of other teams' offenses, specifically the Monarchs especially, had a really tough issue reacting to that. We
Yeah.
we we struck them.
Huh. I
Because they're the
I see
Strike.
what you did there. That
Hey,
took me an
Strike,
embarrassingly long time.
Strike, whoever is in charge of this, little side note, we need sweatshirts sold at the game, please. I really want to buy a sweatshirt at the game. I was very cold.
Yeah, Kane was looking to buy sweatshirts back-to-back weeks at the strike game, and they weren't there either time. Uh,
I'm not paying shipping costs. You're not getting me on that. Anyway, okay. Anything,
what?
anything to add?
Oh, um, yeah. So about the defense, let's talk about that end of second quarter. I mean, the half that the bookends from was it Hendrickson, I believe, Just
Yes,
Hendrickson,
Hendrickson.
number 14.
The bookends. Oh my
That
God.
was, I mean, the poach defense that the strike were playing, and the way she just like she saw the handler on the Monarchs. I don't know who was handling the disc on the Monarchs, like stepping to throw that pass, and you can see like in the replay. If you want to go back and watch it, it's around the 55-minute mark, maybe a little bit before that in the game. Um, on the VOD. Um, it was around the 55-minute mark. She sees it, and before the handler is even like prepping to throw, she is already running to get in that lane. Like she's moving to get in that lane. And it was again having like the ability to like go back and watch it again and again and again. It's
Right.
so impressive because we always see it like so quick and so fast paced, but like the players are seeing all these things unfolding all at once. Um, and I think that's really indicative of like the strength of the individuals on the strike.
Right.
Because last week we were talking about Poyer and how, she was making those cuts. We couldn't even see her, but like on the review, but like we knew that she wasn't always sitting in the end zone. She was cutting, and then she saw that ability, she saw that opening, and then she went right to the end zone. Like she made that cut because she saw it unfolding. Um,
Right.
so I think it like is indicative of the knowledge every single player on the strike has of what's happening in the game at any given point in time and their ability to read the field at any given point in time. And that's
Right.
a really good strength to have. Um, and yeah,
Right. Yeah.
I think that's going to be really
Especially
good
when
like going
you're,
forward.
especially as a team that I think the Strike is definitely a very smart team for sure. And like I said earlier about like the field control thing. Is that a cat?
It's yeah,
Oh, hello, Alaska. That's adorable. Um, I think the Strike is a very like smart team, offense and defense. And what you were saying about like the field awareness. Again, that's really hard to coach. That's very hard to like teach that. That just comes down to the individual effort, ability, et cetera, et cetera. I'll, let the athletes speak on that.
and some of it
But
is experience too.
right, obviously, again, you can't teach it. It's not something that can be told to you. And so I think the fact that the Strike are able to go to the Hendrickson bookends, I think that's an awesome play. It's also just one of those examples of the type of opportunity that is created when the striker playing such a smart game. You know what I mean? And so it created an awesome highlight play and added to the blowout. So excellent defensive showing. And I think that would be a good transition to the offense because
I mean, it was literally the point before that where every single offensive player was just making highlight reel plays. Um, let's say, and again in that Alicia Carr interview that we did, um, she said that like we were expecting to clean it up, expect to see, a different team, a cleaner team, and we did. Holy crap, we did. The strike made next to no mistakes. It looked like, it felt like, especially on offense. Um, actually, did Milwaukee? I don't think Milwaukee had a single break.
I don't know if it did.
Uh, they that might be wrong. Anyway, um, strike offense was playing super clean, super precise. Anytime they had the disc, they were moving it very quickly, and it felt very explosive. And I think last week, that's what you and I were saying we liked seeing. We liked seeing them play that quick pace game,
Yeah.
which isn't always like totally possible. But when the strike are able to play that game, they are winning. They are the best at that.
Oh, absolutely.
Like no
There
defense
were
can stop them from playing that game.
there were several points. I remember watching where like I almost I, I got one of the Thai bowls, like the food bowls, and I was eating it, and I looked down, and I'm not even joking. I looked up, and the strike were in the end zone, and that like the efficiency of the offense to okay, so you know how I was saying earlier how the strike don't let the defense play their or don't let the offense play their offense, like the strike's defense do that.
Hmm.
It's almost like the strike's offense doesn't let the defense set up their defense if everything is executing properly. Obviously, that's like it doesn't happen every single time, but it's one of those things where the offense seems to be very good at the field commandment.
Yeah, definitely. And there are definitely a couple of players that we should talk about, specifically Daniel Byers, um, because I mean she played amazingly this
Yeah,
weekend.
check our hands for glue. What is that?
Yeah,
What is
like
that, bro?
seriously,
No,
serious. I mean, she was on
the
that
amount
point.
of like just cross field over the shoulder catches she's just like picking out of the air. I'm like, okay, okay, insane.
I mean, yeah, Daniel Byers, if you want to tell us the glue you're using,
Yeah,
because
we
I'm
would like
kidding,
to
of
know what glue
course.
you're using.
Uh,
Dan Byers, we would like to have you on the pod, please and
again,
thank you.
um,
I absolutely, yeah,
they call her buckets for a reason.
no, genuinely. Um, Another standout player. I mean, Rachel Johnson, I think, continues to be one of the most consistent like possession handlers ever. She, I don't know. Again, I don't know numbers, but I don't know if can you find the number for how many completions she had on that in that game? I feel like I'm obviously the big Huck games are really easy to like remember, but a lot of points down the field are driven by Johnson and Carr, especially those two. And so I feel like while we give credit to the quick pace, like fast efficiency, I think there's definitely an intentionality to a more slow, methodical approach, especially when the striker trying to manage the clock. I think that's very much a real thing. And so having like that mix of offensive abilities in players and strategy is really awesome to just like see as a fan. And I'm sure it's great as a team.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know how many completions she had in that game, Rachel Johnson, that is. Uh, but I think you're right. There is definitely a lot of thought that goes into playing quick paced and playing slow, like which like the decision making process. Um, and I think last week, sometimes we saw them playing quick paced when they should have been playing slow or vice versa. Um, and they weren't making that decision, the right decision all the time. And this week, that just felt like they never made the wrong decision. It
Right.
it looked like they never made the wrong decision either. Um,
Yeah.
so it'll be interesting to see if they can carry this momentum through that bye week next week,
Mhm.
because they have the bye next week and then they play, um, I believe the Raleigh Radiants the following week.
Mhm.
So I wonder if they can like carry this momentum through that, and then also Alaska. Can you please stop? I'm sorry. She is attacking my setup over here. Um, so I wonder if they can continue this, momentum and see if they can keep making those right decisions, those good decisions, uh, in that next game.
Absolutely. I think this week we saw the strike hammer out just about any kink there was from the previous week. Um, and so I'm not personally worried about the bye week. I don't think that that's a real thing, having like a week off.
Also,
Um,
next week is a bye week, I believe, for all of the PUL. When you go to their schedule, I think next week is just off for all of the PUL. So
Interesting.
Raleigh also have a bye next week.
If there's a reason for that, let us know. Anyway, yeah. So I think looking ahead to the game against Raleigh, I think we're gonna see pretty much the exact same strike that we saw this weekend. And if that's the case, then well, East Coast has got something to worry about other than hurricanes and mostly just hurricanes mostly.
He's Yeah. And you can definitely catch that game at the Premier Ultimate League's YouTube channel. It'll be streamed live, I believe.
Yes.
Um,
In excellent quality.
yes.
I complained last year about the UFA stream quality. This year, guys, it's incredible.
I mean the PUL's stream quality?
Yes.
You
No,
said
the UFA
UFA's.
stream quality sucks. That one sucks still. The app, don't watch on your phone. If you have Watch UFA on your phone, don't use it on your phone. It doesn't
Use it
work.
on literally any other device.
Yeah, use it on like a Kindle Fire. Um,
Yeah, literally probably better.
but yeah, so the PUL streaming service this year I feel like is better quality. I've watched a few other games and it's been good.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, do you want to jump into our weekly forecast?
yeah, what do we have to look forward to for the upcoming week?
Okay. So again, we just mentioned how the Minnesota Strike have that bye. But looking forward, the weather report, the Minnesota Wind Chill are going to Chicago to play the Union um, this upcoming Saturday, so 5/11. And the Union played their first game of the season from the day we're recording this yesterday. So they played on, or maybe Friday. They played their first game of the season against the Mechanics. And the Mechanics did the classic Mechanics thing and they lost. But this time they lost by a lot, like a
Yeah,
lot. 15 actually. They were held to just 1 point in both of the first two quarters. Uh, I was watching it a little bit, and I'm not gonna lie, I shut it off after the first quarter. It was too brutal to watch.
that bad.
Um, and I wouldn't even say that it was like the Union playing or the Mechanics playing poorly, but the Union were looked really good. Um, if that's any indication. I think in that game they had like at least 9 blocks.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
See, blocks are different than just straight turnovers.
Yeah.
However, I don't know. Sometimes blocks are easier to get if the team isn't the greatest. I don't know. I always take every single game against Detroit with a grain of salt because, like, I don't know. It's just so variable. Because remember, I think there was a game against Detroit, maybe it was Chicago, maybe it was Indy, that was like within two until the end. And so it's like, I don't
Yeah, I think
know.
that was
You,
against last
you
year's
could
Radicals team.
it is so random and variable. I don't even the score doesn't matter, the game doesn't matter. I don't it doesn't
Yeah.
matter to me. I think Chicago is just a threat in general. I think I downplayed their potential this year just because I really don't like them. Um, and so I think looking ahead to next week, because it's an away game, I think Chicago might be the favored, just like overall. I think for people, I can see it being the case. But I think Minnesota played a really good game first week. And I think like going into another game against Chicago where they've won the last, what, two matchups against Chicago now? Three?
Just the last one because they only played them twice last year and they split it.
Okay. Okay. Well,
Maybe they played them three. I don't know.
I don't
They
know.
they
Either
won.
way,
Yeah,
they knocked him out. All right. They won. They
yeah,
got that monkey off their back. And so I think it's going to be a really good matchup. And it's one of those games where if Minnesota can get a win here, I feel like it kind of legitimizes their ability to take on opponents like the Empire, who we just saw take their first loss in forever.
yeah. That's a big news from across the league. Um, the Empire lost to the Atlanta Hustle by 5. At one point, the Hustle were leading by 6, almost 7. Like if the Hustle were playing you can't even complain, but if they were playing a tad bit cleaner, they theoretically could have won that game by 7 or 8 points. Um, we're not a New York podcast, so we're not going to cover that in depth. Go
Nope.
watch that game and go see that. Uh, Hustle played amazing. Empire played less than amazing, but still played really good. I think the Empire is still a threat. But the Hustle played amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
I do want to say a little bit about this Minnesota Chicago game before we completely are done with this podcast. Is in Minnesota's week 1 game, they threw 211 passes with a 92% completion rate. Chicago had a 91% completion rate in their game against Detroit. So a lower completion rate against, I mean, arguably the worst of the two between Pittsburgh and Detroit. We haven't seen them play each other this year, so we don't actually know that. But I'm going to say Detroit's the worst of the two teams. I think it's a pretty easy statement to make.
I'll give you that one. Yep.
Um, and Chicago was forced to throw, I mean, close to 300 passes. Let me double check. I think it was close to 300 passes. Um,
Mhm.
against Detroit. So like when you see, I mean, yes, they scored 24 points, but when you see like 300 passes, you're thinking, well, there's a lot of movement down the field. There's a lot of shorter passes, which means that at least the Detroit was forcing them to take passes that they didn't necessarily want to take. They weren't leaving cutters completely open. Um,
I forgot about my lighting setup until right now.
yeah, the Chicago Union threw almost exactly 300 passes. They threw 299.
That's good. Wow. Did you just like know that, or did you just guess almost 300?
I
Because
remember
that's
see I remember
incredible.
seeing it at one point
Okay.
because
Okay.
I did look at the game stats, so I did see it.
Okay.
I
But
wish that
like
I was
either way,
that good. I
that is
wish
a
I was
lot
that good.
of yeah, that is
Um,
a lot of possession. I remember the we were giving Pittsburgh a lot of crap because they had a high possession game.
I mean, they threw almost
The hi-
400 passes.
yeah,
They might have
but that
thrown
was
over
against us.
400
That
passes.
wasn't against Detroit. So
That's true.
yeah.
Um,
Either way, I think it's going to be an interesting matchup to see Minnesota's defense against Chicago's offense. I feel like that's always the matchup that it comes out to be, and I think it's going to be very fun because Minnesota's defense is looking to kick some actual butt this year.
yeah, yeah, they are. I think Adam Ruffner might have said it best in his power rankings for this week. I think it was when he said it wasn't highlight filled, but Minnesota got the job done. Like it doesn't need to be highlight filled to win a game.
Just
You know what I
copy and
mean?
paste that every week.
Yep.
Boom, done. Go home. There's your article, Adam. I got you. I can do it if you want. I'll copy and paste for you. We'll take it.
Yeah, I mean Minnesota. I mean
W
Minnesota
is a
has some
W,
highlight
man.
plays, but I do think that was I think that was a good point. Minnesota did
No
not play a
highlight
flashy
plays.
game.
What is that?
I mean, there weren't that many highlight plays last week for the wind chill.
Every time,
There were not. This week we're
every
going to see
time.
more against the Chicago Union. Um, anything else, Kane?
No, I think that's it. It
All
was
right.
a great week to be a Minnesota sports fan, Minnesota wind chill, Minnesota strike fan.
Yeah, I mean, also Minnesota sports fan. Jeff's not here, but to plug baseball, Twins went on a 12
Go
game win streak.
Twins.
They actually today is Sunday, so they lost their first game against the Red Sox. First loss in like 14 days. Um, and then
Oh,
also the Timberwolves are on a 5 game win streak. They took
Anthony
game one.
Edwards is on a 5 game win streak.
Hey, hey, their whole team
Standard.
was playing amazing. Naz Reid stepped up in
Yes.
their
Anyway,
first game.
all
Um,
right. We said more than one non-frisbee name. That's not allowed on this podcast. Thank you all thank you all very all right.
so very much for tuning back into Let's Chill. As always, we want to give a huge shout out to our partners over at R1P1, doing great stuff in the sports media industry. Zoom backgrounds, all of our thumbnails, all of our graphics and design stuff. Really cool, really awesome, great guys. Go and check them out. That's R1P1. Um, and as
That's it.
always, ka-chow.
Ka-chow.
Stay chilly.